Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take that stack of source material you've shared with us and, well, we try to cut a direct path right through all the dense information. Today, we are focusing on something truly fundamental, the microscopic engine of, really, the entire digital age, nanoelectronics. If you've ever wondered how every single piece of modern tech, from supercomputers to your smart thermostat, is getting smaller, faster, and just so much more capable, this is it. This is the core technology you need to grasp.
It really is. It's the reason silicon still reigns supreme, even as we're constantly looking for what comes next.
And it's responsible for creating, just billions upon billions of dollars in market value. It's fueling what people are calling the next industrial revolution. So our mission today is pretty comprehensive. We're going to define what nanoelectronics actually is, unpack the unique, almost magical quantum physics that makes it all work.
And then map out its global impact. We'll look at 4 crucial industries.
And, critically, we'll detail the exact educational path and the technical skills you need if you want to be a serious player in this field. Okay, let's unpack this.
You know, the definition itself sounds deceptively simple. Nanoelectronics is the study and application of electronic devices and systems that are fabricated at the nanoscale.
And nanoscale, for anyone hearing that, what's the actual benchmark?
We are generally talking about dimensions of 100 nanometers or less.
Okay, and just to put that into perspective for everyone listening, how small is that, really?
It's almost impossibly small. A nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter. A single human hair is, about 80,000 to 100,000 nanometers thick.
Wow.
So when we're designing transistors that are maybe 5 or 10 nanometers across, you're operating in a dimension where the rules of the world completely change.
And that change in the rules is, I think, the most fascinating part. The sources all make it crystal clear that below that 100 nanometer line, classical physics, the physics of our everyday world, it just stops applying.
It breaks down.
And the dynamics of quantum physics take over. That's where all the power of this field comes from. Right?
Precisely. The electron is no longer just this tiny ball zipping along a wire. Its behavior becomes probabilistic, it's wave-like. And this is what allows us to push density and performance far beyond what anyone thought was possible a couple of decades ago.
So this whole idea of scaling, just making things smaller and smaller, that's really the key to the future of the entire semiconductor industry.
It is.
And what does that actually mean for us, for the consumers and the engineers using this stuff?
Well, when you shrink components down that much, you get 2 massive benefits.
Okay.
Dramatically faster signal processing, because electrons just have less distance to travel, and this is huge. And significantly reduced energy consumption.
Which means longer battery life, less heat.
Exactly. And it lets engineers pack just orders of magnitude more devices onto a single chip. It's the ultimate win-win.
What's so interesting here is that this isn't just theory. It's not abstract physics. It's high-level physics directly informing how we engineer materials. Nanoelectronics is this perfect blend of quantum concepts and the very practical demands of material science.
And because electrons behave so differently at this scale, we can't just keep using bulk silicon for everything. You have to use specialized nanomaterials that actively change how electrons move.
Right, and your sources highlighted a few key players there.
Yeah, the ones that are either supplementing or in some cases replacing traditional silicon. You've got carbon nanotubes, graphene, that single atom thick wonder material, quantum dots, and nanowires.
So here's a question then. If graphene and carbon nanotubes have such superior electrical properties, way better conductivity than silicon, why is silicon still the dominant industry standard?
That's a fantastic question, and it really gets to the heart of engineering reality. While materials like graphene have these just astonishing properties in a lab, integrating them reliably and uniformly into the existing fabrication process is incredibly difficult.
The process that's already been perfected over decades.
Exactly. We're talking about a process that has had trillions of dollars invested into it over 50 years. Silicon benefits from all that manufacturing maturity, the low defect rates. It's just known.
So right now, these new nanomaterials are more like specialized add-ons, not total replacements.
For the most part, yes. But the materials we do use at this scale let us actively exploit some amazing quantum effects. Take electron tunneling.
Okay.
It's where an electron acting as a wave can pass right through an energy barrier that classical physics says it absolutely cannot cross. It's like walking through a solid wall.
And we can actually harness that.
We do. We use it to create faster switching devices. You also see something called energy quantization, which means electrons can only exist at very specific, discrete energy levels. We exploit that for things like the quantum dots in your TV display.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the actual components that are built using these quantum effects, starting with the heart of every single device, the transistor. So to keep pushing processors, these nanoscale transistors now have to operate well below 10 nanometers. But the old, flat 2D design, it just leaks current like crazy when you shrink it that small.
Right, it's like a leaky faucet that's always on, just wasting energy. And that's where architectural innovation had to come in. We had to move from flat, planar structures to 3D designs.
Specifically the FinFET.
The thin field effect transistor, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine replacing a flat street with a series of tall, thin skyscrapers. The current flows up the sides of those fins.
So by going vertical, you get much more surface area for the gate to control the current.
Vastly more control. And that dramatically cuts down leakage and boosts performance.
And even FinFETs are starting to hit their limits. The sources mentioned the next step is the gate-all-around transistor.
Or GAA. And that's where you wrap the gate material entirely around the channel on all four sides. It's about maximizing that control to the absolute physical limit.
Okay, moving away from the CPU, what about nanosensors?
Because their active sensing elements are built at the nanoscale, their surface area to volume ratio is just immense. This makes them incredibly sensitive.
Sensitive to what?
To tiny, tiny concentrations or changes in their environment. This is what's powering things like continuous glucose monitoring for diabetics or detecting trace pollutants in the air, and of course, the next generation of super accurate wearable devices.
And finally, memory. Because our traditional memory is hitting a wall, right? It's hard to scale, and it loses data when you turn the power off.
A huge wall. So Nano Electronics is offering completely new approaches. We're looking at non-volatile memories that store data through a physical change in the material itself, not just by holding a charge.
No point.
Well, take resistive RAM, or ReRAM. It stores a bit of data by literally changing the electrical resistance of a material. Then you have phase change memory, which uses a tiny pulse of heat to switch a material between a glass-like state and a crystal state.
And my personal favorite from the sources was spin memory, or MRAM.
Ah, yes, spintronics. It's totally different because it uses the electron's spin and intrinsic quantum property to store data instead of its charge.
So all of these promise storage that's faster, much more durable, and doesn't need constant power just to remember things.
Exactly. There are fundamental shifts.
So we've established the physics is complex, the components are microscopic, but the impact is massive. Let's connect this back to the global market, because this isn't science fiction. This is driving business transformation right now.
That's right. The scale of this is just staggering. If you look at where this technology lands, I mean, it touches virtually every major economic sector you can think of.
Let's start with the most obvious one, consumer electronics. Every new smartphone, every new laptop, this is the foundational tech. It's what delivers the faster processing, the better battery life, the miniaturization that we all just expect now.
Absolutely. Then you have healthcare, where the change is completely transformative.
How so?
Because these nanoscale devices are so sensitive and small, you can create incredibly specific medical tools. We're talking about implantable sensors that can monitor neural activity in real time.
Wow.
Or lab-on-a-chip devices that analyze a blood sample from a single drop instantly. Even smart drug delivery systems that only release medication when they reach a specific cancer cell.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And what about the sustainability and energy side of things?
A crucial angle. The push for efficiency demands nanoelectronics. This field is creating the ultra-low power circuits that save electricity in giant data centers, high-efficiency solar cells that use quantum dots to capture more light.
And the smart grids that manage energy for entire cities.
Exactly. Those rely on vast networks of tiny, efficient sensors.
And then there's the entire future of automation. Cars and robots.
For self-driving cars and advanced robots, you need just extreme processing speeds for real-time decisions, but you also need these tiny, robust, super sensitive sensor systems, LiDAR, thermal cameras, you name it all, packed into a small control unit that can't fail. Nanoelectronics delivers that whole package.
And the market backs this all up. The investment is huge.
Extremely high. The sector is already a multi-billion-dollar market, and the growth forecasts are just accelerating. So for you, the learner, that means specialized labs, significant funding, and high-demand jobs aren't just stable, they're growing exponentially all over the world.
Which brings us right to the practical path forward. If this kind of innovation excites you, studying nanoelectronics, especially if you can get into an international research facility, offers some huge benefits.
It really differentiates your profile.
The sources all emphasize that the top universities are making these immense investments in nanofabrication labs, in clean rooms.
And students in those programs get real hands-on experience with industry-standard equipment. They're collaborating on real research projects. That practical experience in a clean room is basically non-negotiable for a career in this.
And it has to be interdisciplinary, right? You can't just stick to one field.
No, you really can't. Nanoelectronics sits squarely at the intersection of electrical engineering, solid-state physics, material science, and computer engineering. You have to be comfortable bridging those gaps.
So let's lay it out. The educational foundation. At the undergrad level, what do you need?
You absolutely have to nail the basics. So that's electrical engineering, applied physics, or electronics engineering. A really strong foundation in advanced math, and especially semiconductor physics, is your ticket to ride.
And specialization starts at the master's level.
That's where you really dive deep. You might focus on device fabrication or VLSI design. That's the art of squeezing entire systems onto one chip, or even more specialized quantum electronics. A PhD then means you're innovating on the next-gen devices themselves.
Okay, but to actually get one of these high-demand jobs, you need more than just the degree. You need measurable technical skills.
That's right. Proficiency in specific tools is essential. You need to understand fabrication, but you also need to be able to simulate and predict how a device will behave before you spend millions building it.
And that means TCAD simulators.
Technology, computer-aided design, yes. TCAD is how engineers can affordably test billions of device designs virtually before they ever commit to an expensive clean room run. It's absolutely critical.
And then there's the data side. The amount of data coming out of these labs must be staggering.
It is. So fluency in software like MATLAB and more Python for data analysis and visualization is a huge advantage, plus the standard CAD tools for chip layout, of course.
So the roles you can land are things like device engineers, process engineers, VLSI designers.
All highly specialized, globally competitive roles, yes. Or, if you prefer the startup world, research scientist roles in areas like wearable tech or biomedical devices. If we connect this to the bigger picture, while the field is defined by this astonishing progress, it is built on some pretty significant challenges.
Let's start with the first one. Manufacturing complexity and cost. I mean, how expensive are we really talking here?
We're talking astronomical numbers. The sources underscore that building and operating a single state-of-the-art clean room, a modern fab, can easily cost north of 10, maybe even $20 billion.
$20 billion just for one facility.
And that capital cost, combined with the extreme precision tools you need for etching features just a few atoms wide, it just drives up the complexity and the cost of production tremendously.
Then you have the physical limits. Moore's law is slowing down.
It's definitely slowing down.
Yeah.
We're literally running out of atoms to scale silicon further without causing massive electron leakage and heat problems. We're being forced to look for alternatives beyond just making things smaller.
And your sources laid out a great list of practical everyday problems, the engineering reality. The biggest one seemed to be fabrication variability.
It's a huge one because the devices are so small. A change of just a few atoms during the manufacturing process can cause these huge swings in electrical performance. It makes getting uniformity across billions of transistors really difficult.
And you still have to deal with simple defects.
All the time, especially defects on the surface and the interfaces between materials. At the nanoscale, these act like electrical traps that just kill performance. And maybe the hardest of all is thermal management.
Getting the heat out.
Right. You're packing billions of these things into a square centimeter. The heat density can be higher than on the surface of the sun. Getting that heat away from the chip is critical for reliability.
But these roadblocks are actually what's driving the most exciting future research. Since silicon scaling is hitting a wall, the field is moving beyond it.
A ton of research is pouring into 2D materials like graphene and things called TMDCs, transition metal dicoxygenides. They have excellent switching properties at tiny scale.
And also spintronics, which we mentioned earlier, using the electron spin instead of its charge.
Yeah,
That feels like a complete paradigm shift.
it is. It could potentially use far less energy.
And maybe the biggest future trend is the convergence with other technologies. Nanoelectronics is the key to supporting faster AI hardware, right?
Absolutely critical. And for building functional quantum processors, which need extreme cold and stability, and for developing neuromorphic computing, which tries to mimic the structure of the human brain.
So the immediate horizon, the big focus right now, is integrating these new exotic 2D materials with our standard silicon platforms.
Exactly. Solving that tricky integration challenge is where a huge amount of engineering focus and, frankly, funding is being directed right now.
So to bring this all full circle, nanoelectronics isn't just an academic subject. It's the fundamental door to the future of all technology. It promises just immense long-term career growth if you're willing to embrace that complexity.
And if you're going to take that jump, you have to focus on measurable, hands-on skills. Don't just read the books. Get into a clean room. Become proficient in material characterization tools, things like XPS or tone mim and master device simulation. Those are the skills employers are fighting over.
And here's a great project management tip straight from the deep source material. Treat your lab recipes and your instrument settings like their code. Use source control, like Git, for them. It ensures perfect consistency and makes debugging so much faster when something goes wrong.
And here's the final thought to mull over. This is from one of the experts in the field. With nanoelectronics, the ability to do things may not just double, it could go up by 2,000 times.
Wow.
We're at a stage where the hardest part isn't how to engineer it. We have the tools. It's knowing what new device or architecture to even try at this level. The only constraint is imagination.
So what does this all mean? This field requires immense patience, deep critical thinking, and a willingness to constantly update what you know, because the tech changes by the week. It's hard work, but the reward is directly shaped